You're listening to the Shipyard Cat Podcast, the unofficial SAFC podcast for fans everywhere.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the pod. I am Robin, obviously, as you know, and tonight I'll be joined by Kev and Adam. Obviously, Adam did host, just before, but obviously on the back of another loss, it's down to myself to do. So, look, we'll get started. Adam, on that, how are you feeling, bud?
Feeling better now that we've had a day to digest that result. Well, not all good, and it's nice once again for somebody else to fill my shoes in when it comes to another loss.
And Kev, obviously, I'm sort of guessing your feelings as well, but how are you, mate?
It's deflating, isn't it? Like, we've had such a good start to the season. We're now getting to the run-in, and it's like, oh, if we'd have had some of these performances earlier on in the season, I don't think it would feel so bad. But it just doesn't feel good right now. I mean, I'm sure you'll talk about this, we are riddled with injuries. We are absolutely peppered. When you look at that bench and it's the Joneses' Christmas family dinner, that's when you know you've got problems. But anyway, you're hosting. Take it away.
I mean, look, it's a good enough point to start. We are absolutely horrendously short-numbered with injuries. You know, when you look at that bench, you know, like you said, I mean, the three Joneses on it, you know, we are, you know, I mean, we've got Simon Moore as the backup keeper at the moment. You know, we are just bereft with injuries. It's a horrendous situation, and the thing is, obviously, we had the comments just before last weekend, which were obviously factually incorrect. What the commentary chairman has said about us buying a whole new starting 11, when, you know, I think the first game of the season there was 5 players or 6 players that actually played in the playoff final. But yeah, it just shows really what you need to do when you go up to the Premier League. Because, yes, we did buy a lot of players. However, I think we've got more injuries in the league at the moment than anybody else. And it just shows
that doesn't fit the narrative of the media. The media are just sort of going along the narrative of this is us on a poor run of form. They don't talk about the fact that 6 of our signings are injured.
Yeah.
That's what it was for me. It was when Regis was getting hollered at by fans saying, make changes, make changes. He looks at the bench and he's got no one to look at. How horrific have certain players got to be if they can't even get on that bench? You know, Abdullah Bar, all is forgiven, Pervada come back. Like, we had nothing to go to. You know, he took off, obviously, Robbie, and he puts my ender on. But we are lacking. Midfield was missing. I'm sure you'll go through the bits of the game, but as soon as we saw the team sheet with Enzo missing, everyone went, uh-oh. And obviously Rig, I thought, played brilliantly, but there's only so much each player can do, and it just wasn't happening for us.
I mean, you're spot on there. I think Rig had his probably best game of the season. You know, I know I personally have been critical about him this season. I think he needs to, you know, get a bit stronger. I mean, it was quite interesting the way that Xhaka reacted to, obviously, the fact, you know, when he was caught late by Duncan Van Hecker, you know, obviously, you know, had a go at him, starting bullying the little kid. You know, and Xhaka stood up to it. And it's just like, why did no one, you know, in the commentary of it, like obviously on TV and stuff like that, with the highlights, mentioned about, you know, how he's, you know, they're picking on the little kid.
But Dunk got nothing. Xhaka got yellow card.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, you know, look, Lewis Dunk's one of those that he's been around it for a while. He knows what to do and when to do it, etc. But yeah, I mean, I won't start with the referee's performance because we'll just go down a really dark path. But
What performance?
yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't the greatest by a long way.
No, Kev just hit the nail on the head. Sorry to jump your gun there, Robin. Kev just hit the nail on the head with the whole Xhaka thing. It was the fact being that Dunk, Van Heck kept on wiping Ricky out, getting away with it, and then we got a free kick, and Xhaka goes up to the ref and goes, "Okay, you missed 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that you've stopped it, where's the card?" Yes, obviously you don't want people asking for cards because obviously it's a clear offence, but he makes a valid point. Why have you stopped the ball now when he's been wiped out this many times? That's the thing for me when you look at Xhaka. Xhaka's being allowed as a captain to approach a referee to discuss with the referee the decisions that he's making, and then he gets a yellow card for it. That's what I don't understand, because then 2 minutes later, bloody Minter does a horrific tackle, gets away with it.
Can you just talk about that? Obviously, I know we've jumped massively ahead, but just quickly.
Yeah, it wasn't 2 minutes later. It might have been 2 minutes after he got his caution. But let's go back to the actual game. Yeah. And what I want to talk about is basically Van Heck and Dunk, because when you look at their goal, and I'm going to say first of all, to me, it's down to Trey Hume. He plays a lazy back pass that gives him a corner. And this is a week after 09 almost scored a great own goal to give Port Vale a corner, which cost us the goal, which knocked us out of the cup. You know, Hume had time to just put that one up the line and clear the danger. And I know there is this thing with possession-based football. But a week after what happened in the FA Cup, why take risks? And why be so lackadaisical in your back pass to give them a corner? So, perfect time to talk about it. Obviously, the corner comes in. Obviously, Diarra is laying on the floor. Yeah, Dunk pushed him. Technically, what they're saying, it was before the corner was taken. So, the referee should have stopped it. When the corner was taken, he should have blown it dead and made them retake the corner and spoke to the players. But I think what a lot of people are missing is the fact that when Diarra was pushed, I mean, he did go down easy, and I think he should have got up. However, Van Heck was running by, and he caught the back of his head.
Yeah.
You know, so we've got a player laying down in the 6-yard box, which, whether the referee feels it's enough for him to stay down, he clearly didn't see Van Heck, catch him on the back of the head. But the VAR should have seen that. But also, Van Heck does that, and yet the ball breaks off, and he is in an offside position when Minto scores, and he's standing right in the line of Melke Elborg. I was, adding it together, lads. And the thing is, why didn't the VAR look at that? Obviously, everyone thought at first that there was another player there, but obviously Xhaka was playing. Xhaka would have been the second person. Obviously, the rule is that you've got to have 2 players there. It's generally a defender and the keeper. However, the keeper was further forward than Van Hecker. And they're not following the basic rules of the game. How VAR have missed that?
So I'm going to be devil's advocate on that because I've now rewatched it a couple of times after I told you about that it was clear offside. Yes, one, the foul should have been given. I don't doubt that at all because that was horrific and should have been called.
Well, hang on a minute, Adam. Adam, I'll just interject there because if you remember back against Fulham and Bobby's pull, which we got a penalty against, even though the Fulham player was in an offside position, which you can only be offside when the ball's kicked.
Yeah.
They said the pull took place before the offside, which meant that the free kick hadn't been taken, so it was a dead ball.
Yeah.
So how can we be penalised against Fulham for something that happened before the ball was in play? And now we're not, we're not given that same benefit when the ball wasn't in play.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. It is stupid that it's effectively one rule for one team, one rule for another team. It's like the lottery. Who's going to get the lucky draw this week of getting all the correct decisions by VAR? Nobody knows, unless you're a top six side.
It's what I've said in the past. It's those newly promoted teams getting the punishment of, you can learn how to play hard ball. That's what disappointed me was the fact that Van Heck stood blatantly offside in front of Elborg, so he can't see the ball.
Yeah.
And then Elborg getting beat by his near post. So could he have got it in from there? Probably shouldn't be able to because that then changes the game. And obviously, moments later on in the game, he shoves Luke O'Nien over off the ball, gets a yellow card. 2 minutes later, does another tackle, edge of the box, and the referee says, "Oh, nothing given," and gives enough time for the Brighton manager to quickly substitute Minter off before he gets sent off.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, for us this year, we're not got the benefit of that because next season they will review that as a second yellow bookable offence, and is it a red card? I mean, I don't want to see VAR coming in doing that sort of thing, but it just shows the ineptitude of the referees and basically how unfair that the VAR officials are, that they're only deciding to get involved on certain things. So just to go back, because Adam, you were going to make a point about the offside after seeing it again.
Yeah, so from looking at it and from what I understand from what the referees who came out, because I've been watching a little bit of somewhat referee watch, not Sky Sports is a different company, but they were saying the reason why it's been allowed to continue on a very close-up image, Xhaka is still on the pitch and Xhaka's trailing leg that's on the pitch, as horrible as it sounds, is actually in front of Elborg. So because that's in front of there, technically Van Heck isn't offside, and that's why it was on. So to me, I still stand by. I'm agreeing with you two. That it should be offside, but because Xhaka's leg is still on the pitch, that is classed as him still being in play. As horrible as it sounds, because to me, if you look at Riggy's goal, which I know you're going to touch on, Alderete should not have been involved in that because it was Rigg that took the final touch. Alderete didn't touch it.
No, I'm going to correct you there, mate. Sorry. I know what you're saying about Xhaka, and that's what I said to you originally, that Xhaka was still on the pitch. However, it has to be two players between the offside player, or what would have been offside player, the attacking player, and the goal. And the thing is, though, there wasn't, because Elborg was higher up the pitch than what Van Hecke was.
Mm.
And because of that, he was offside. If Elborg had been level or nearer to the goal than what Van Hecke was, then it's a perfectly good goal. It's not offside. But the fact is that he wasn't, and the thing is that it was dismissed so quickly, so the lines weren't drawn. they just decided straight away, which has happened a few times to us now this season, that they're not going to review this. But you brought it up, so we'll touch on Riggy's goal. Brilliantly taken goal.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely gutted for the lad it never stood. And this is the contentious bit about offside. Alderete, when the ball was played, was offside.
Yeah.
However, he gained no advantage from being offside because he had to come back towards the ball, and there was about four Brighton players that were then goal side of him when he connected with the header. Obviously, the ball went through to Rig, and he scored it. But it's one of those. I mean, he didn't gain advantage from him being higher up the pitch because the fact he had to come back towards the ball and all the Brighton players were running back towards the goal. But look, letter of the law, that one's offside. And quite rightly was disallowed to me. But also, letter of the law, the Brighton goal was offside, and they tend not, they didn't give that one. And like I say, it's a few times now it's happened to us, and it just has a bit of a bad taste. I mean, I don't think we were good enough, but when you look at what Herzl said about us, he said that they were the better team in the first half, but if we'd nicked it, he had no complaints. I mean, when a manager says that, what are your thoughts then, Kev, on that?
I mean, look, Hertzler's quite a complimentary manager when it's deserved. He will say what is factually correct. I mean, for me, neither side really had much above each other. I think they were better in the first half. I think we seemed a lot better in the second half, but it was just for me, there was just a lack of something in the game, if that makes sense. It was like both teams just had enough. We can't blame it on the amount of fixtures because it's not that. But both teams just looked done. The lads, when they came out for warm up, were brilliant. I'm not going to deny that. But yeah, with Hertzler's comments, I think it's one of those. If that finishes one apiece, both managers shake each other's hands and say, "Do you know what? We leveled each other out." And that's one thing I want our fans to kind of maybe think about is it was a 1-0 against a very good Brighton side. They've done a lot of teams this season worse than us, and it was a 1-0. You'd have probably taken losses like this at the start of the season. Before a ball was kicked, these games were ones that we were told were gonna be 3-4-0 drummings every week. So to ride it out and finish 1-0 down with your number one goalkeeper injured, your probably number one centre back in Nordy injured, your left back injured, your wingers injured. I could go on.
Well, I mean, I'd put Nordy as the number one right back, to be honest. Obviously, Ronaldo is the number one left back, 100%. I mean, what's glaringly obvious to me is we got Brian Brobby back this week, who is an immensely strong footballer, and he's great at holding the ball up. But there's no one running off him. To me, I think when you're playing Brobby up top, you need someone with him. I think we need a slight change in formation, personally. Obviously, I'm not saying the three at the back because I don't think it's worked for us that well. But I certainly do think that we should maybe go a 4-1, 3-2 option. So, obviously, ideally to me, you'd have your keeper, Ruffs, if he's fit. Obviously Elborg was devastated with the goal he conceded because no goalkeeper should be beaten at the near post. But the fact that he was trying to review the ball around an offside player, you can sort of understand why he was sneaking out a little bit. And also as well, goalkeepers expect players to be cutting that back across the 6-yard box. So he's probably trying to gain an advantage. I mean, it looked like Minter just scuffed the ball, to be honest, and he got lucky.
He even said himself. He even said himself he was trying to cross the ball. Said he didn't mean to take the shot. He just hit and hoped to get it across the 6-yard line, and it went across the goal.
Goalkeepers say shouldn't be beaten in the near post, but I understand that one. I'd go obviously the 4 at the back. If everyone's fit, it's Mukiela, Ballard, Alderete, and Ronaldo. I'd then play Xhaka in the holding role in front of them. I'll then probably play Siddiqui in front of him. On the wings, if everyone's fit. You're probably looking at Angulo and Jocelyn Tarby, to me, from what I've seen of him so far. Obviously, he's not fit. And I would really like to see Bobby play up front with... Personally, I'd like to see him play up front with Lafay. Because Lafay's got that instinct to put the ball in the back of the net. We all saw how it worked with, Quinn and Phillips years ago. Obviously, a different style of play, but Bobby can hold the ball up like Quinny used to. Yeah, Quinny's a lot better in the air, obviously. He's about 7 foot taller than everyone else on the planet. But, I think Enzo playing that role with the striker, I think we do not have a big enough goal threat to me. And when we do go a goal down like we did, at the start of the season where everyone was up for it, it was great because people were getting forward. Now it seems like there's been a shift in the way we think and don't want to overcommit and get hammered. Kev?
Just off the back of that, I think part of the other problem is now some teams will set up after going 1-0 up, park the bus. They'll happily go and sit with a 1-0 and draw the game out in terms of the dark arts. Brighton were a prime example of that. There was so much time wasting going on that just didn't get dealt with. The goalkeeper taking forever and a day to take a goal kick and stuff. And for me, I think at that point, Brighton were happy with a 1-goal lead and felt they could probably drag it out to the end. Gone are the days, I think, of teams trying to go and get 2, 3 more, like you said, because they're too concerned about pushing for the second and conceding an equaliser.
Well, we saw what happened with the Arsenal and Everton match.
Yeah. Us and Bournemouth. Earlier on in the season.
Yeah. Obviously, this weekend, though, you look at what happened and obviously Everton chasing the game and Arsenal then, Max Dowman, fair play at the lad, what is it, 16 years and 71 days or something?
Something like that,
72 days, something like that, becomes the youngest goal scorer in Premier League history. And it took him to, beat 2 players in his own half. And then look, for any young lad to show that kind of composure to run forward and then just slot the ball into an empty net, fair enough. But it just shows what happens when teams are chasing the game. And is that something we're worried about too much, Adam?
I think for us it's more we want to go up, get an equaliser. We want to score, but at the minute it feels like we're trying to pass it in. Compared to the start of the season where you had people going, right, okay, I'll just hit and hope. And if it goes on target, it's on target. If it goes in the back of the net, even better. Look at Talby, for example, against Chelsea. Right place, right time, because we all pushed up as one. We managed to do it. And this is where I'm in agreement with you in regards to Bobby being possibly up with Lafay. every time we've seen a Robbie and Enzo, Robbie's brought it down, and if Enzo's near him, there's the ball straight to Enzo. Enzo to say Mundell will cut it in. Things like that. It's those little pieces of the jigsaw that hopefully, well, obviously we haven't seen the press yet, but hopefully certain members of this core will be back for the visitors game on the weekend. Obviously, we'll touch on that later on the week anyway, but I think that's what's needed. And you could see visibly on certain players' faces on Saturday, it was, where's this cohesion gone? Where is it? I don't think it's the players wanting to turn on likes of Regis or turn on the coaching staff. It's more of, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to fix? And we need to do it now, if that makes sense. I don't think there's any rush to make those changes, because to me, I think we're completely safe. These are changes that need to be made to solidify something. We're still, correct me if I'm wrong, boys, I think we're still only 6 points off Europe if we wanted to try and push for that. Obviously, results pending and stuff like that, I think. But it's one of those. Everyone just needs to believe the lads again and just get behind them and just enjoy what we've got. We'll get results. It will come. Just believe the lads. And I think the only issue I had massively on Saturday from kickoff, we had a low block at home. And that's what annoyed me. When you're at home, we've said it time and again, you said yourself, Robin, when you're at home, you expect to be pushing forward a lot more than you would normally when you're away from home. We didn't seem that way on Saturday. We wanted to sit back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you're right there. I do think we have got comfortable in the low block and winning games, not having the majority of possession. However, it just shows that when we're not creating that many opportunities, and fair play to the lads on Saturday, there was some shots from outside the area. I mean, they weren't on target, but there was some shots, which it does make a difference. But yeah, I mean, I think, Adam, to be fair to the lads as well, what we've got to look at is, since just before the AFCON, where we lost 7 players, we've piled up on the injuries so much. And maybe it is because of losing those players and the stress on the players that were left. And then we got some of the players back from AFCON, not all of them, because obviously Ronaldo is not really featured, Traore is not really featured. We've got some of these players back, but the injury situation is taking a massive hit on our performances. Mm-hmm. And I will touch on it, but the fallout, I know this is going to please Kev, the fallout on social media with what we like to call the bedwetters,
armchair managers,
has been absolutely horrendous.
Yep.
And like I say, when you take everything into consideration, you know, with the AFCON, with the injuries, with us being a newly promoted team, etc., you know, I mean, like I say, Kev, I'm going to let you run with this one because I know you have something to say about it.
I guess it's what I mentioned a minute ago. The fan base seems to have forgotten very, very quickly where we were a year, 2, 3 years ago. You know, I'm sorry to read the echo and almost want to back them up a little bit in the fact that they say, you know, far too many fans are getting up and going at the 70th minute. I'm sorry, but support your team. This is just, it's another merry-go-round. When we were at the end of this, when we were winning these games, funnily enough, fans were staying to the end. Those prior engagements didn't exist. Now all of a sudden the games are a little bit tough and we're not winning every game. And yeah, we're in the thick of it, is the word I would probably use. It's funny how many people have got a prior commitment 20 minutes before the game finishes. It's embarrassing when you watch it back on the likes of Match of the Day, and there are the 70-minute clips, and there's a massive pocket of fans missing from behind the goal. And it's like, oh, the Roker end have emptied. That's meant to be the hive of activity, allegedly. That's why they put all the safe standing in there. That's why it's the singing stand. And yet they go missing. And I get it happens in most grounds, but what's the need to run and get a beer at 35 minutes and come back down at 55 minutes and then leave at the 70th minute? Like, it's frustrating the life out of me seeing how bad it's getting when things like this happen. When we play Chelsea at the last game of the season, are fans going to stay and clap the players off at the end of the game because that's their end of the Premier League season? Or are they all going to go and have these prior arrangements at 70th minute and because we didn't beat Chelsea in the last game of the season, have a sulk?
That's a great point, that, Kev, because look at what happened a couple of years ago with Sheffield Wednesday at home, last game of the season. They needed that. We were disappointing. They won that game, and the lads that then have to, as players do, go round the stadium to applaud all the fans for their support over the years.
Yep.
They were doing it to a half-empty stadium.
Which then looks embarrassing when it's done on various social media platforms. We know the visitors watch these things and enjoy posting about it. And that's what it is for me. You imagine if the last game of the season was the difference between staying up and going down or qualifying for Europe or not. These are the things for me that we've really got to address as a fan base. The club are putting all this effort in making it nice and talking about Wembley Walk and a new statue for Jimmy and all this stuff going on in the background. But we all of a sudden have gone back to, I don't know, the second season in League One where the ground is a ghost town in the 70th minute because you're 1-0 down. Does no one remember the Coventry playoff? Stay to the very last minute because you never know what might happen. But the fans almost think, we're 1-0 down, we're not getting this back, and they leave.
Yeah, where earlier on in the season, people were staying.
And cheering and making noise and giving the players that extra boost. I'm not a fan of Liverpool, but Szoboszlai has literally come out and said, we need our fans to help with the performances.
Yeah, that's because last night what happened to them, wasn't it? They went 1-0. They were 1-0 up. Everyone was there. Went 1-1. Everyone started leaving.
It was a bit before that, Adam, because obviously,
You know what I mean, though, don't you? It's the fact being that people are leaving, and it's that's Liverpool that it's happening to. I'm not saying
won the league last year.
Exactly, yeah. And that's why I keep on reiterating for this season specifically. I know you guys have just mentioned obviously Coventry, but the other one being is this year specifically Bournemouth. And I'm going to keep on using that game time and time again because the fact being we were 2-0 down in the first half. Then pulled up just before half time, 2-1. Where was everybody on the 90th minute? They were on tenterhooks to see if we got that winning goal. Where is that from? That was only 3-4 months ago to now. You're fighting against Brighton. Yes, it's all 1-0. It's not nice getting beat 1-0, but it's one. It's one goal. A crowd can get the team up. You can see it in the lads' faces. Suzuki trying to drive the crowd up when it comes to a corner.
He tried to against Brighton. He tried to G the fans up to get the crowd going, and it was met with a "ooh" for Hume, and that was it.
Yeah,
there's just a real lack of that fire in our bellies from the fan base, and I get it. You can put all that effort in, but if the fans are not doing it and the players aren't doing it, are we on the beach? Have we hit 40 points? Are we happy? I don't think we should even be thinking 40 safe right now. Mathematically, you're not safe yet.
Yeah.
Statistically, it's 0.4% chance of getting relegated, but
there's still the chance.
There's still a chance. If West
to
Ham
me,
and Forest start getting their results turned around.
Exactly.
But to me, I do get it. I do get the frustration. I do think, in a way, the lads are on the beach a little bit.
Can't be on Sunday.
No, Sunday's going to be different, and I think they'll all be up for it Sunday. Hoping to have some lads back, but we'll come to that later in the week. But I do think that, they've reached that 40-point mark. You look at the other teams down there, and yeah, we're 12 points above the relegation. Look, you've got to think with 8 games left, there is no way possible that West Ham, Forest, and Spurs are going to pick up more than 4 wins.
Especially when some of them have got to play each other.
And we play Spurs.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't count us winning that at the minute, because we have been really, really poor, especially since, like I say, that loss to Liverpool at home and everything then seemed to go because the fight seems to have gone. To me, from the lads we've got this unbeaten home record. To me, I want to see it stopped because what we can't afford to do is carry that into next season.
Yeah.
We don't want to go on this thing of losing games at home now. I think, obviously, we've got a massive game on Sunday, but I think after that, our next 4 home games, and one of them's, a couple of them are going to be tough, to be fair. We got Forest on the Friday night, which are battling relegation, so they're going to be up for it. And we've also got Chelsea, which are going to be fighting for the Champions League. We got Man United again fighting for Champions League, and Tottenham, which are fighting relegation. So the teams we're facing at home, they're all got things to fight for, and I think we need to now go into those games thinking we can't afford to lose any of these because it's going to impact us next season. You know what I mean? If you think, them teams have all got something to play for, if we don't win any of those games, then you've got to think, how are we going to start next season at home?
Yep.
We really, really need to address this and bring some fight. So, look, I think we've said enough about the game. We are going to obviously get together later in the week. Adam might host them because obviously it's a preview and not a loss. But yeah, lads, thanks for joining me tonight. We won't go through it individually. We all know who we are. But yeah, look, lads, let's hope for some positivity and some good news on the injury front. And yeah, we'll see you on the next episode.